Hey everybody, we're looking at hanging out with the Feel Good folks down here at the MyPlace Hotels annual convention. Let's get it started.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey everybody, welcome to the one and only No Vacancy Live. Of course, I'm Glenn Hausman. Anthony Melchiori is having a little bit of a technical issue, but he shall be here shortly. Meanwhile, I'm coming at you live from MyPlace Hotels annual convention here, and I'm really excited to welcome to the show, right next to me, Mr. Matt Campbell, COO MyPlace Hotels, and Mr. Eric Myers, VP Franchise Sales, MyPlace Hotels. Guys, so great to see you.
Good to see you. You too. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, and thanks for having me be a part of this event. And what was really exciting is that we kicked off today's event. I got to host a panel. I got to work with you on stage. Our good friend Rachel Humphrey, Neil Patel, the chairperson of AHOA these days, and of course Mark Skinner of the Highland Group. What's it like for you getting together, guys? This group after 3 long years of us not being able to be in person.
Absolutely, you can feel the buzz in the environment. You can hear them walking down the halls. You hear the partnerships and partners that we have here with us today. Our franchisees are bubbling to learn a little bit more about what we have taken on at MyPlace.
Yeah, that's awesome. Daniel saying howdy, Daniel. Great to see you today. Eric, how you feeling about the vibe over here today?
Good. We picked a great venue this year.
Yep.
Our attendance is up, year over year, every year. Just more people wanting to hear the MyPlace story. I think we were talking the other day, we have the most prospective franchisees attending this year, so that's really exciting.
That's really awesome. For those of you who don't understand how these things work, a lot of the hotel brands out there have annual conferences. A lot of the management companies do too, to bring everybody that's participating in that brand or brand family a chance to get together, connect with each other on a human basis, and learn all of the things that happened in the past year while looking forward to the future year. Now, Eric, not all conventions do this, but it's really important for you to bring folks that haven't yet made a franchise decision to these events, right?
Yeah, I think it was really important at this stage in our growth that we invite people that are interested in checking out the brand,
right?
Sitting down with other owners, operators, management companies, GMs. I mean, everybody's here, so it's actually a great venue and connecting tool that we used, and it's really been successful. The guys that came to check us out are loving it, and they love to hear the story.
Yeah, and if I can add one thing,
please,
you heard yesterday with Ryan, our CEO.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he made the comment, it's all about the people. And frankly, if you've known MyPlace and followed us through the years, it has always been about the people.
Yeah.
It's in the core, it's in our philosophy of making sure whether it's a long-term franchisee, long-term friend, or a new person that we're just meeting for the first time, try to make it really about them and this experience with their general managers and their team members and investors that are here.
Right, and quite frankly, that's what the whole idea of the culture of this particular brand is. And, sometimes a lot of brands, as they grow, and I should say congratulations, milestone over here, 100 franchises sold, most of those already open. That must be feeling pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, we really... Terry Klein and myself, as far as on the franchise side of it, have been, the busiest we've been in the last 2 years.
Right.
This last 6 months has just been crazy as far as phones ringing and deals getting executed. And, I think based on this convention, I expect that it's going to escalate pretty quickly after this too.
Yeah, what do you feel about it?
It's great when you push the 100 franchise sold. I mean, the model's been proven. I think our success over the last few years, it's great to see it come to this point and be able to announce it at our 2022 MyPlace convention.
Yeah, but now to go back a step to what I was just saying a moment ago, that culture element is so important. And one of the things that I've felt with the culture of this company is it feels like friends hanging out with friends. Sure, business is happening, but you don't have that corporate veneer that's going on. What you see is what you get with you guys.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll go back to it. It has always been about the people. We had a great franchisee dinner last night, and I was able to sit with our franchisees across the table as a friend, certainly business partners, but truly sitting across the table with the franchisees as friends really changes the atmosphere throughout this entire event.
Yeah, it certainly does. How are you feeling about things right now?
Yeah, I mean, it's, the culture has always been there with the family part of the business. So when you join the MyPlace family, whether it's as an employee or as a franchisee,
they actually Ryan Riven, the CEO, adopts each and every employee.
I wish. But no, it's just a culture that brings everybody
Right.
together, and we've always said that when you come into this group, it's a 20-year agreement. It's a long-term agreement. So we want to make sure that we're right for you and that you're right for us.
Right. So, of course, we're talking about MyPlace Hotels, and MyPlace is an extended stay brand that really understands what their customers are looking for. And we're talking 100 hotels, but also you started franchising, what, 7 years ago?
2014 is when franchising
Yep.
just started. So I
Yep.
mean, we're 7-8 years into it. Still call us relatively new, but our pace that we're picking up hasn't slowed down. It's only escalated. And certainly the pandemic made people question or raise different questions in all the development decisions. And
Yeah. So, Eric, in terms of what people are looking for in a hotel, the extended stay service really popped over the last 5 or 6 years or so. Everybody went from going, huh, to wanting to own one. What has that transition been like for you as somebody who's out there trying to do deals every day?
Yeah, I think what we've seen is, from the developer perspective, I think we've seen a little more interest in the fact that, hey, we saw how well these extended stay hotels did during the
Right.
pandemic. And they were doing well before that, but it really got highlighted during the pandemic. So now all of a sudden developers that have done other brands for years and years are like, well, I'm going to start looking at the extended stay market. And when you start looking at that market, we really shine as far as whether it's time to construct or cost to construct or the support systems that we have in place. We really kind of shine. So it's this whole new group of developers that weren't necessarily looking in that segment.
Well, not only that, but you're also, from what I understand about the company, finding developers that haven't played in the hospitality playground before on the hotel side of business, which is really giving you, a nice basis to go from, right, Matt?
absolutely. I mean, I think in our panel this morning and a panel later this afternoon,
Yeah.
it's simple said a lot of times. I mean, it's not trying to overcomplicate what we're doing. We're providing a service that's clean, comfortable, and affordable for the guests, and certainly easier to operate from an operator standpoint.
All right, and now, technical issues I hope have been cleared up. Anthony, can you hear us now? How's it going?
Let's not overcomplicate things. That's all I heard.
Well, at least you're hearing stuff. All right, Anthony, what we've been talking about is these are good folks over at MyPlace. They just hit the 100 franchise milestone. We're talking a little bit about how extended stay has come into the zeitgeist of the hospitality industry and that sort of stuff. So welcome. How are you today, man?
Great. It's just so funny. Like, it's like bell bottoms, right? They came back, everybody loves them, but for a long time, I like them. Extended stay is the same thing, right? When they first came in, everybody's like, oh, extended stay, extended stay. Now everybody wants it to be cool again, and everybody is getting an extended stay business because they know that's the model that not only the guests want, but that's the most, I think, the most popular.
Yeah, that's true, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it caught everybody's attention in the pandemic, and certainly looking back now, I mean, what we offer is a light model, and certainly people are paying more attention to it, exactly how Eric alluded to it a few minutes.
The fact that we're new and fresh and, we're not what they're almost used to doing in the past. So this is like a fresh product. We have a lot of developers they're like, we want to be a part of this. We want to see this grow. A lot of the legacy brands have kind of diluted and they've lost some of that appeal to where people are like, we love what you guys are doing. We want to get involved. Most of our franchisees are not one-offs. Almost all of them outside of, I counted the other day. We have 5 out of the 100 franchises sold. We have about 5 or 6 that are one-offs.
Well, probably soon to be 2 or 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
But Anthony, it's interesting. He made a point about legacy brands. What is it about older brands that have been around that they sometimes lose what the initial meaning was for their core identity?
Well, it's kind of like, you're extending your house. You buy this house for 3,000 square feet, and then you make more money, so now it's 5,000. And by the end of your, you're 60 years old and you have a 20,000 square foot house, you're like, this damn thing is too big to control. The same thing with the brands. They get bigger and they get bigger, and then they turn around like, this thing is so big. It's hard to get back. It's really noisy. It's hard to hear.
It's hard. It's noisy. It's noisy on this side.
Yeah,
All right, hold it. We're going to get a door closed right now. Sorry about that, Anthony.
Yeah, I can't hear myself.
That's all right. So let's.
So it's just the
go on.
brand got so big that one of the things that you see as a general manager, as an executive, growing your career. Yeah, guys, I really can't hear myself.
No, they're trying to close the door right now. The problem is there's a wire in front of the door that is just big enough to make it impossible to close said door. So they're working on that right now. Give us 1 second, please, Anthony. But in the meantime, yeah, go on.
So what I was saying is, when you get promoted, the number one thing you say is, "Oh, I miss the interaction with the guest. I miss that feeling." And so when all the people that came up in the brands, they're great people, but they're getting more and more removed, and that's why these legacy brands, it's not so much they don't want to change, and a lot of them have changed, and a lot of them are changing.
Right.
The nimbleness of them, and really, to me, we've all met those people that if you're 60 years old, but you think like a 15 or 20-year-old or 30-year-old, you're in good shape. So I think we're starting to see a lot of that kind of dissipate, and you're starting to see a lot of more young thinking. So, but even if you have the young thinking, you have the creativity. Those big brands are just, the ship is hard to turn. I won't tell you which brand, but I just talked to a good friend of mine who's a senior,
right,
and we had to get something done. And he's like, "Well, that'll take about 10 days." So it's like, that should take 10 days.
Yeah, it does. And Glenn and I were able to talk about this earlier today. Diversity of thought, but nimble in change. I mean, you're not slow to change. You're thoughtful in change, but you're able to do it. And certainly, diversity in thought really allows you to do that.
Yeah, it certainly does. Eric, you want to make a comment on that?
Yeah, I mean, just to your point, I've always told franchisees that we are literally a phone call away, and that's whether it's myself or Matt as the COO or even Ryan Rivet. And I've had franchisees say that I literally called the CEO and he answered, and we had a 2-day turnaround on whatever topic we were discussing. So it's nice to be.
Yeah, but then when you become that legacy brand, make sure you don't forget that.
Right.
Well, it's not the first rodeo here, and I don't think it was forgot on the first time. So
no, for sure. Should we bring in Ryan? Do you think? All right, so we're gonna do a quick switch over here. Ryan, why don't you come in, and Eric's gonna take off right now. Do you want to say goodbye? Any final thoughts before we kick you out of here?
On what topic?
That's a little callback humor from earlier today.
No, you guys are good.
You're leaving so soon?
He's leaving. It's nothing personal, but he personally offended me, so now I don't want him on the show anymore. Actually, we're just going to make room for Ryan Rivet, President and CEO of MyPlace Hotels. Hey, man, how are you? Good. It's so good. So we're going to be looking into that camera and this here just so you can see Anthony over there. So we were just saying before you got here, congratulations on that 100 franchise milestone. That's pretty important. Now we kind of moved the conversation to legacy brands and stuff like that. And as you guys grow, how are you going to keep this amazing culture intact that makes it feel like a family as opposed to a Wall Street type of business?
I think the biggest aspect of maintaining the culture as we scale is how we embrace every new franchisee, right? So the franchise model grows not by just the nucleus expanding out. It grows by every layer outside of the nucleus. So every new franchisee we bring in, we embrace them, show them how we do things. They embrace that and become part of that culture. It's not just what's happening in the walls of our offices in Aberdeen or inside of the marketing that we do. It's
what percentage of your hotels are new builds?
100% of them.
100%.
100%. Yeah, we're all new construction, very intentionally so.
Yeah. What is the benefits of that?
Well, better consistency in the project, in the product, the finished product, but also better consistency for the investor in the projects. You know what to expect when you come into knowing that the product is exactly the same every time.
Yeah. Anthony, you got something? I got something if you don't.
One of the things, when we can all name the brands that are the most difficult to work with, and we can all name the brands that are the easiest to work with. And I just had another conversation with a brand friend of mine, and he says, I think we're too nice, and that hurts our brand standards sometimes. So how are you become flexible and you work with, especially with a company or a franchisor that had, maybe 20, that you can build 20 or 10 or 5, and you want to accommodate them, but if you do that, you're losing the standard. I am sure you deal with that every day. So how do you manage that?
So the brand, the prototype and the brand standards that have been developed for MyPlace are functioning. It's not design. It's not just heavy on aesthetics and design value and what's in market today. It's what we know works. And so for a franchisee coming in, for a builder coming in to challenge the standards that we have is basically generally personal preference. And that's an easy conversation to have, because you can organize personal preference on one silo and real functionality and effectiveness in operations in the other silo. And a wise person says, hey, if it's functional, it works right, there's a track record of it.
Right.
Why would I reinvent the wheel? Why would I change what you guys have put in place?
But sometimes you run into that you have to manage that, like expectations that people
certainly do, and we get a lot of deviation requests that come through off of our brand standards as franchisees are going about their work. We evaluate all of them and have responses for them. I'll be the first to say that there are some deviation requests that we've received from franchisees that they've gotten started on their first project where we're like, hey, that's a really good idea, actually. We've looked at it, but never from that perspective. We like it. We'll test it. We'll incorporate it into the standards and make sure that we can utilize the value they brought in going forward. So we do manage it every day, and there are some variations here and there. Nothing is very heavy. By and large, you walk into a MyPlace hotel, you're going to see and feel.
What motivated another brand? Because the last thing we need is another brand, but the thing we need the most is another brand. And I think you all understand what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
Well, so what motivated that for us is that it really isn't necessarily, hey, we need another brand out there because it's going to fit another niche out there in the marketplace for hoteliers.
Right.
What we needed internally is another brand to satisfy the demand that we're getting for conversions.
Right.
MyPlace is 100% new construction, all new projects, and we're, again, like I said, we're intentional about that. And part of the way that we create value there for people that don't want to build has been, as the franchisor, we're also owner operator developers, and so we've been on a steady mission to build projects, own them, stabilize them, and then be prepared to move those on to franchisees that don't want to go through the construction process but are looking for a solid, stabilized asset under our brand. So that's great, but then over and above that, we have franchisees that are multiple operators that have other branded projects, and they're saying, man, I really love what's going on in my MyPlace. I wish I had the same set of circumstances in my whatever other property. And so what we designed was Trend being basically an extension of MyPlace, but outside of the MyPlace brand.
Who's your prime customer? Who's your prime customer?
On the guest side or the franchisee side?
Both.
Prime customer on the guest side is the gray collar working individual. Mm-hmm. We've got great success with those, whether they're traveling for business or for leisure. They're in Monday, they're out Thursday. Those are really heavy demand for us. On the franchisee side, I'd say, generally speaking, our prime customer has been those that are in the business, but very comfortable in the development side of the business.
So they've worked in other real estate classes and stuff like that, right?
And as we heard about in the panel just a little bit ago here, where they're talking about acquiring MyPlace assets as opposed to entering the brand from a transactional side as opposed to the development side. And we've seen a huge uptick in interest in acquiring MyPlace properties in the circumstances we've had in the last 18, 24 months.
Oh, interesting.
And seeing the demographic change and the dynamics of how people enter and how they stabilize themselves within our brand has been really pretty cool.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to add to that?
No, I completely agree. I'd say from the transient side or the consumer side, certainly the guest that's looking for a value product with high quality and certainly not looking for some of the amenities that are just going a little bit too far in other products. And it's certainly been a good, well received.
All right, sorry, Anthony, go ahead.
How many rooms on average is the hotel?
Good. All right. This is funny because I wanted to transition to this particular topic because I know that you're going to have something to say about this, Anthony. So 64 rooms is your typical prototype. The option to do another floor, 83 rooms. Anthony has said throughout his career that sometimes when you have a lower room count, it's difficult to make money. Before he says something, How are you feeling about that 64 room?
For me to make a statement about that, they've done all the work, they've done all the math, they know what works and doesn't work. So I won't. But typically, just from my experience, I just had a conversation with one of my clients, because we're hopefully going to build a second hotel for him, and he's like, "What do you think of 70-room hotel?" And I was like, "Can we get it to 100, 125?" And he's like, "Why?" And then I showed him the math. I did a P&L and showed him why that works a little bit better, especially in that market. So it really depends the market. It really depends, and what's the cost per per room to build. So I would imagine they did a lot more work to make that 65 make sense.
Yeah, we're well researched and experienced in it. I mean, if you go back into the Super 8 days and understanding the dynamics of,
just so you know, his dad was heavily involved, founded Super 8, brought that until it got sold to one of the major corporations, and then kind of went on to this, right?
Yeah. So there's it's all market based, and I completely agree with you, Anthony. I mean, if I look at a market and there's absolutely no question that I can rent 70% of my 122 rooms in that market every night, I'm not going to target a 64-room property. So the way we've designed it is we've created the basic fundamental hotel. 64 rooms is the prototype. It works exceptionally well as it's operated, how we've intended it to be operated, as it's placed in the markets that we intended it to be placed in. The 85-room concept has been successful, and we got a handful of developers out there that are using it. And in most cases, I've been able to get confident in 85 rooms in those markets they're going into. I've had some questions though, because the additional 20 rooms, nobody ever complains about having, you get to the end of the year and you never say, "Man, I'm really glad I had those extra 20 rooms on the nights where I only rented 40 of them."
Right.
I've never heard that. Right. So, but and that's why I didn't answer the question. Plus, Glenn, you set me up. If I answered that question any other way, they're going to take the headphones off and they walk away.
What I really wanted to do is because you come from a traditional hotel background, you didn't have that much experience in the extended stay because it wasn't really a thing back in the day, right?
Really, I developed an extended stay. Extended stay.
Well, the Staybridge Suites in Times Square, that's a little bit different, and also doesn't have those same kind.
I understand. My point being is, an educated hotelier, as we all are, would never answer that question just out of hand and say, "Well, no, one size fits all." Also, you got to understand that what people didn't really focus in on early in my career was the cost of building. Right? They did, but like now they've got it down to such a fine art. If you put a wall in the middle of the lobby, which would have been a cool wall back in the day because it separates things. Now it's like, well, it costs X amount of dollars. Let's not do that. Let's not use that material. So I would imagine you've gotten cost per room to develop down to the penny. And that's really what drives the 68 room or 70 room, whatever it is, concept, because it comes down to what does it cost to build. And what a lot of people got into trouble with 20, 30 years ago in the 3 and 4 star projects is they kind of like, oh, more amenities, more things. People want to see this. People want to feel that. We've realized comfortable bed, clean, a nice person at the front desk or in the hotel, and your hotel's done. If you don't have those 3 things, you can put $1 million a key into a room. It doesn't matter. So nowadays, it's really down to the construction cost, and they've got it down. They've really got it, wire it in.
Yeah. Well, and all of the different components of cost. It's not just the sticks and bricks, but the time it takes to get to market is a huge component of the cost, and never more so than today, right? So the risk involved in an additional month of construction period that it takes to get a bigger project done.
Yeah, supply chain issues aside, you're doing 18-month builds, something like that, right?
No, we're more like 7 to 8 months.
7 to 8 months.
We were 5 to 6, and in the last 24 months, that's really changed. I mean, we just finished the construction panel here, and we had consensus among the contractors that were up on stage that their 24 to 28 week schedules pre-COVID was shoveling the dirt to keys in the doors. And now we're at 34 to 40 weeks is the right time frame. I mean, commonly it's still, even though the time frames have been extended, it generally takes us more time to get through the entitlements and permitting process than it does to actually build the building. And so there's value in that. We can take a 64 room property and put it on Class A real estate in a really, really nice area, spend $40-50 a square foot on the real estate, which is crazy for a mid-scale product like what we have. But we only need an acre and a quarter, or in some cases a little less than that.
Wow.
I mean, fit these things on a postage stamp, get them into submarkets where the barriers to entry to other hoteliers is really challenging because they need 2.5 to 3 acres to get their 123 rooms on.
Right.
We slide in and do exceptionally well next to some of the higher business.
Yeah. And if you ever want to feel like you're training for a Olympics, try to pull a CO for a hotel.
Yeah.
No doubt. There's no doubt about that. One of the questions I was just asked on the construction panel was how has the municipal relationship with contractors changed? Your inspectors and on these projects, what's going on? And one of the answers was, I feel like they've gotten way too involved in our projects.
Right.
I'll give you a perfect example, not to give away too much, but I'm working on a project where it's not being held up. We just found out about it, so we'll be able to get it done, and it won't affect our opening, hopefully. But we just found out that the local county, not the state, the local county wants a $15,000 bond for the landscaping of the building that stays with the local government in case they don't take care of the landscaping. The local county doesn't want these abandoned buildings to have bad landscaping. Have you heard of that before? It's the first time I've heard of it.
I have. We dealt with it. Actually, a project that we did a couple of years ago in Indianapolis. Mm-hmm. We're carrying. We've been open for 2.5 years now, and we're still carrying a $100,000 bond on landscaping there, and we got to carry it for 10 years.
$100,000? Yeah. That is such a burden for an owner.
It's ridiculous.
Well, it's absolutely ridiculous. But what it does is a lot of these towns, and we've all seen them, that are kind of like, sometimes there's good years, decades, and sometimes there's bad. And when it's a bad decade, these are right on the main road, and all of a sudden the landscape, you can have a building that's closed, but if you have beautiful landscaping, it doesn't hurt the community. So I can understand it.
Yes.
All the $100,000 is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I think it's some of the challenges that we see. It's a parallel to a lot of the challenges that we see in developing a project today, where municipalities have shifted fiscal responsibility off of themselves and onto those who are bringing new business in.
Good point.
And so where it's, hey, you guys, the city should budget, the county should budget, they should keep reserve funds, they should be the ones planning and utilizing our tax dollars for improvements and maintenance in the good times and the bad. But now we're carrying additional costs. It costs us more to do business in that community, more so than it should, because they've shifted that responsibility over to us.
Are you finding in this vein that if some communities are difficult to work with, that your potential owners might be like, well, I could get a piece of land in the next county and it'll be a lot better? Have you seen that sort of thing?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you look at developing a hotel in a major metro area, and as the brand, we'd love to see that, because we want awareness. We want priority in the markets, and a lot of times you have to take what you can get when the franchisee says, well, I really wanted to build it in Chicago, but actually I'm going to be over here in wherever, on the outskirts, not necessarily prominent in the market, because when I get out into this county or I get over into this township, I can get through the door a lot easier, and I can still pull that business, but I don't have to deal with all the challenges of a 3-year project and hundreds of thousands.
And the reason there's high barrier to entries in A markets is because it can be, and the county or the government could make more money in taxes. So one of the reasons you see the B and C markets growing, because the low barrier to entry over the last 15, 20 years. So now that they're kind of, look at Nashville and look at those who used to have a low barrier to market, now much higher. Now it's much more difficult to do business in markets like that. One of the things I found interesting, the owners that we interviewed and that I had coffee with a couple of weeks ago, Rich Bolton and Nomad in New York, on their website, it says, we go into high barrier markets. We want to go into the most complicated markets in the country because those are the markets that you can make the most money. Those are the most dangerous. Those are the most,
right.
Like, when you have that kind of money and that kind of ability and that kind of connection, that's what they focus on.
Because the owners did a lot in Miami, for example.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
I've never seen that in somebody's marketing. We like difficult markets.
Yeah, that's an interesting point of view. So, Matt, you guys are doing a lot of secondary and tertiary markets. Obviously, it seems to be a place where the big companies would like to go, but don't seem to have the wherewithal to be able to pull it off. You and a couple of others, smaller, outside the mainstream brands are finding it successful. What's the secret there?
We've just been capable of moving into the markets and finding, as Ryan touched on, the franchisees that we have, they have a passion for the certain markets where they're in, and they're able to find those sites that, have been really available over the years, but the site is frankly too small for them. So we're able to slip into those sites in the markets that really need new product and new inventory in the market.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's great opportunities in smaller locations where they haven't had a hotel in 25 years.
Yeah,
and you can step in there and provide something fresh and new to the community. It's much more well received, and there's sustainable value in that for the operator that's going in. But there's never been an intention to go into secondary and tertiary markets. It's 100% franchisee driven. They grab this product and say, I really like it over here. If you look at the current development pipeline that we have, the majority of it is going in primary markets.
That's interesting.
It's the periphery of the primary markets.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we're not central business district, but yeah, it's Raleigh, North Carolina, or it's Indianapolis, or it's Chicago, or it's Phoenix, and so we've got a lot of activity in the primary markets, and what I find it has been really a neat dynamic to watch grow is when we started, more of our projects were in secondary and tertiary markets because we started in the Midwest where we're from, and it kind of mushroomed out from there. But once we hit that point where we've gone far enough outside of our primary home area and started seeing more projects in primary markets, now as you look at the operations role in the chain, and you can balance the two, I can't make a strong statement that primary markets are better than secondary and tertiary markets.
That's interesting.
On an average basis. I mean, seriously, there's so much value in both.
No. Bottom line, definitely, I don't think so. I think that, listen, when you're building a 68-room or 70-room hotel, when you're doing, where can we make money? Where's when we start losing money or start losing the hotel? And it's probably a 50%. It's probably lower in some markets, and it's probably lower in some of the builds you're doing. But that's really what you're focused on, Glenn. When you're building these, it's like, everything goes. COVID hits again. Where can we? What's our pain point? And a lot of these hotels in the other markets, their pain point, even if they have a 100-room hotel, is 60%, is 70%. When you have these kind of hotels, and I don't know your business model, but I'd imagine your business model is not 60, 70%. It's less than that.
Yeah, you're on the right track there, and the smaller markets. I mean, you can weather the storm a whole lot easier in the secondary and tertiary markets. I mean, you generally find less costly utilities. You find less costly taxes. You find things like that really make a difference in the slower periods. You might find higher labor though, and that's really common to see where major metro area they're average wage is $15 an hour, and you go to a secondary or tertiary market that's 35,000 people, and it's $17.
Yeah, right.
I am so glad you hit on that, because that was my next question. I just realized that. It took me a while. Like, oh my God. It's like New York City. I'm telling you right now, I can get a non-union New York City desk clerk for less than I can in Florida.
That's crazy.
Well, if I tell you what we're paying the front desk clerks in Florida, you wouldn't believe me. So
no, I think you have before, and I didn't.
Don't mention it now. But you're seeing, you're seeing people demand it, and it's no longer. I'll give you an example. We just had a young man that we interviewed. He's 20 years old. 20 years old. He wants a flexible schedule. He wants a supervisory position, never worked in a hotel, and he wants $25 to start and then a review after 90 days.
Yeah, that's marketable today.
It is.
Unfortunately. I mean, and it's not that those aren't terms that are
Reasonable.
workable. I mean, they're not necessarily unreasonable. It's generally the person requesting those terms has zero basis for making that request.
Right.
And so, you know, we're making investments in a lot of areas that don't have a track record.
Yeah.
If you want to put it in those terms.
Right. So almost, if you're going into one of these communities that hasn't had a new property in 25 years, you don't have a lot of people, a pool from which to choose
But
from.
I think you made a really good point, and you said he didn't have a base. Like if he was 20 and he worked in 3 hotels when he was going through high school, going through college, he worked at the front desk, he worked in housekeeping, he was a go-getter, and he was like, hey man, I just need Saturdays and Sundays off, but Monday through Friday I can work 3 to 11, 7 to 3, and I need 25 hours an hour. You're in. But when you're 20 years old and you don't even know what a turn down is, we got a problem.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I think that's a big challenge in managing the labor pool that's out there today. I know Matt deals with it more than I do, as he engages with operators on that side of it and our own staff. And it's hard to manage because we have an objective to develop people. We want to develop those people that come in that don't know what a turn down is, that have never worked in property before. But there's a real cost to that for us, and that portion of it, the investment that the business owner has to make in those people, has kind of been taken out of the equation in a lot of cases. And so, we're working through it, but it's definitely increasing costs of hotel rooms across the board.
It is, and isn't it just exclusive to hospitality? And operators have become more creative on making sure staff is available and trying to meet the reasonable demands that they have. But overall, I mean, it's not exclusive to hospitality, and you gotta re-educate and open up the doors to getting into it.
Yeah, like we said before, I would have loved that ability when I was growing up in this business, right? But we would have been laughed at the hotel. So I think they're very. We have 2 young ladies that we're working on with this hotel, and they have no hotel experience, but they have a want. And like the other day, we were going through an ADA compliance inspection before we get inspected. We brought on an expert to look through the hotel. Because in Florida, that's a problem. There's a lot of lawsuits in Florida with ADA compliant. So we brought through this woman that's an expert, and we brought it through the hotel. And these young ladies sat there for 4 hours and got the greatest education in the world about seeing what you do before you open a hotel to make sure it's ADA compliant. It's like, I've never thought of this. And I said, I'll be honest with you, I didn't ever think about half of this stuff. So I love that if somebody's demanding what they're, that they want a higher price and they want flexibility, but you have to have the skill set to back it up.
Yeah, that's interesting. So speaking about skill sets, you guys are in flux right now. As you go beyond this 100, it kind of changes the game about how you do things. So as COO, Matt, how are you thinking about how you're going to continue to make sure that everybody, all your clients are serviced and all the guests are serviced?
Well, certainly on the hotel side, I mean, it's fundamentals. How do we maintain training, QA standards to make sure it's clean, comfortable, and affordable for the guests?
Yeah.
Franchisee coming in standpoint, it's how do we grow internally to make sure the support systems still exist, whether it's revenue management, national sales, marketing. I mean, we're going to grow alongside them, and as labor is a constraint on the hotel side, it's certainly a constraint across the board, and we're being more creative on finding the right talent to make sure we can continue to support the franchisees.
Yeah. So how do you then you think about when do you start to advertise in a different way? When all of those things start to come together?
I think we've always worked on a longer timeline. I mean, Glenn, you've worked with us long enough to know, hey, we wanted to be at 100 a while ago.
Yeah.
And so it's how do you scale up consistently to be 2 or 3 steps ahead? And I think we've done a good job with that. And today, as we get it to 100 properties and more, it's okay. The planning ahead needs to be more aggressive and more timely.
Right.
And the challenges that it's just more creative on the channels that you market.
I also like what it brings me back to what you said yesterday on stage, where you're not necessarily 2 or 3 steps ahead, though you are, but you're side by side to your partners, working on those issues in real time.
Well, you get better with experience, right? And so as we've experienced growing the chain from 1 to 100 now,
Right.
and continue to approach that, the experience we carry forward makes things a little easier. So 3 steps takes half of the energy that it did 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And then again, it's about how we embrace each participant that comes into the franchise. I think that's
competitive. I'm sorry. The competitive. It's hard. There's a delay. The competitiveness today. I was going to ask you: is it hyper competitive compared to what it was pre-COVID? I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to see. It is hyper competitive today in that market.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It really is, because it's become more cutthroat than it was. And I mean, I think everybody, a lot of the confidences that hotel franchises carried before were stripped away. I mean, there's elements of business confidence in general that was stripped away over the last couple of years. I mean, we all saw what could happen really quickly, and how little control we have in some aspects of our daily lives and the businesses that we do. And so with that waning confidence in some areas, I think the overcorrection is definitely in competition, and it's become more tooth and nail. But we've got a really good opportunity in that, because as well as extended stay performed in the period, and as well as we performed in the period, it kind of shined a light on us and what we're doing, and others in our segment. And so the competition within our segment isn't too heavy. I think the general competition has gotten more tooth and nail, but inside of our segment, there's a lot of opportunity just to focus in on that.
That's interesting. I think, Anthony, what he's talking about is kind of that cluster effect, that the more people get involved, it actually winds up working out better for you, because there's more understanding of what this is all about. Right. Interesting.
Have you run into problems with owners getting financing because the banks in the community don't feel like they can find the labor to support the hotel? Has that been a challenge yet?
I haven't heard any lending challenges relative to a lack of confidence on the operator or the market to supply the labor. I haven't heard that. I've heard challenges because of a lack of clarity in what to forecast in the future. Where are things going to go? I mean, that's everybody's reservation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is how much is going to change in the next 12 months relative to politics and economics.
And you're seeing the softening now in some markets. You're seeing the softening. And when we say softening, we just mean that pent up demand, like that was in Florida. Like last year, this week, I was just in Florida. We're sold out everywhere. This week in Florida is not sold out. It's back to normal slow time in Florida. Whereas last year, they were like, there was no slow time. And they're like, we're scared. I was like, why? Because you went back to normal? Did everybody think that, in the hottest week of the year in Florida, you were going to be the busiest? It was now everybody I know is in Europe. I don't know anybody in my block right now that's not in Europe, except me.
Right.
Last year they were all in Florida.
Yeah, it's definitely changed from a year ago to today in terms of the spikes in demand. Things have stabilized. I mean, we're not seeing huge pullbacks in overall demand. We're just seeing less undulation on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. And I will say that you guys did pretty well throughout the last few years, because particularly comparatively speaking to some of the competition out there.
Hey, Glenn, can you please work undulation into a sentence tomorrow?
Hell yeah, of course I am. That's one word I haven't used on this show. You beat me to it.
Yeah, Glenn's used every single word in the English language.
Yeah.
Great word, though. Great word.
All right. I think it's time to start heading towards wrapping this up. These guys have got somewhere to be for sure. So, Matt, how about some final thoughts? What's the messaging we should take away?
The messaging is the MyPlace convention this year has been absolutely fantastic. The new franchisees that we have here, the existing ones that we hear, the prospective ones that are here to learn more about MyPlace has never been hotter. So I'm very excited to be here in Florida with all of our friends.
No wonder why we're doing it in Florida in August. Never been hotter. Yeah, Anthony?
Do I have 1 minute to ask one question?
Of course.
Okay, your logo stands out. Give me your thoughts about your logo.
Well, I think we have the most obnoxious logo in the hotel industry. I'll tell you that.
Sorry, he's got the most obnoxious co-host.
No bones about it. But it leaves an impression. And we've had a lot of, you can't go away from the colors that leave a psychological impression. And as a young new brand, we wanted to stand out. There's a reason for the logo and what it is, and we really work hard to maintain the integrity of it.
Who developed it? Was it a brand or was it you guys?
It was us.
With you guys.
It was my partner and his wife and I standing over the shoulder of a graphic designer and watching the computer screen and saying, no, change that, change that, change that.
Because it's so funny when I asked the question, and I was very gentle in asking the question. I saw every single thing you've been questioned on that I had in my head on the logo came out. So then I asked, I love the story behind the logo. I love it. I love it. And I love the fact that it is that. And I think we do need that. But if I was explaining, like if I didn't get that explanation and I saw the logo, I'd be like, why that? But it stands out in a marketplace that every logo looks the same colors, same font, and it gets lost. I mean, that looks like a comic book cover. And so I know Glenn loves it because he loves comic books. Additionally, with this, I always say when I'm doing marketing and logos is one of my favorite things to do. Is when I go like this. Your logo, I'd be like, 100% no. Are you out of your mind? I'd be like, give me that again. Okay, let's do it. I did my own logo. I was like, I hate it. It was I didn't like my logo. And then secondly, I was like, no, I like it. It just takes you a second to understand why. So,
it is.
So now I love
it.
Well, it stands out. It's not just, it doesn't stand out just because it's bright and it's using those obnoxious colors of red and yellow. It stands out because it's different than what's in market today.
Right.
And that's why you take the second look at it and you go, oh, actually, you know what? It's a little different than what I'm used to looking at, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, and it's memorable. I mean, obviously in hotels, you're traveling around a lot. You're getting to markets where the product's not in yet, and you do hear from people in the community saying, "Man, I've seen that. Where did I see that?"
That's
and then you kind of walk through
Yeah.
where you traveled lately and walk them through. Okay, I understand. Maybe you did come across that.
Right. And in today's day and age, when you're looking, the first thing you're doing is looking at reviews. So the logo is great; it gets attention. What's going to get people to stay there is when they look at the reviews. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've looked at a hotel when I needed a hotel at the last minute, and I'm like, that doesn't look like, I don't know about that hotel. Then I look, oh, I'm staying there. It's 5-star. I'm done.
Yeah.
You know? And it could be a 2-star hotel, but it's 5 stars online. I'm staying. So,
Yeah.
but that is an interesting logo. I like it.
All right. Any final thoughts, Ryan?
I think actually Anthony's question teed us up for a final thought is, the impression that we're making on our industry and the impression that we're making on the franchisees that join us is one that's coming out just glaringly positive.
Yeah.
And I mean, as we've grown, we've not had to change a lot of things. We've just continued to develop and mature through the process here. And that's how we're going to scale. That's how we continue to grow this brand, is just by continuing to experience, mature, and embrace what is going on and who's joining us.
Excellent. How can we find you? How can we learn more about MyPlace?
MyPlaceHotels.com on the interwebs, and or you can call Matt because he's got his cell phone on his business card.
Call me.
All right, Anthony, we're going to wrap this up today. So for everybody out there, thanks for watching. And be sure, if you're watching us on video, why not listen to our audio podcast? Find that on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. You know where to go already. Wherever you get your shows, we are there. And if you're listening to us, why not watch us? Find us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, NoVacancyNews.com, and elsewhere. Of course, he's at Anthony Hotels. I'm at Traveling Glenn. Anthony, whoop. I think Suzanne did that. Nope, where I did it. I don't know. Anthony, any final thought before we do our official sign-off?
It's an absolute pleasure, and there's nothing like talking to hotel guys for me. So thank you so much.
I love it. You are on fire today, buddy. I love it. All right.
I wish you nothing but the best with your brand.
Thank you.
Great. And remember, everybody, you've got one life, so blaze on and
Be kind to yourself.
we'll be back tomorrow. See you then.